Your numbers don't match our records, Deirdre from HR said, her voice colder than the conference room air conditioning. She slid a stack of papers across the polished wooden table. We believe you've been falsifying your results for quite some time. My new manager Vance leaned forward, his rehearsed sympathy failing to reach his eyes. We've conducted a thorough audit of the client acquisition reports. The discrepancies are significant. I stared at the termination papers, the black text blurring as my heart hammered against my ribs. 6 years. 6 years of early mornings and late nights, of canceled plans and missed family gatherings, of building something from nothing. Sign this and leave quietly, Deirdre continued, uncapping an expensive pen and placing it beside the document. We're prepared to offer 2 weeks severance if you cooperate. The conference room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ventilation system. Vance's wedding ring clinked against his water glass as he shifted uncomfortably. Deirdre's expression remained unchanged, practiced in the art of dismantling careers. I took a deep breath and felt my shoulders relax. Then I smiled. Before I do, I said, pulling out my phone, let me show you something interesting. The confusion on their faces was just the beginning of what would become my sweetest professional moment. My name is Eliza Moreno, I'm 34, and until that morning, I was the senior client relationship manager at a prestigious financial services firm that I won't name for obvious reasons. I'm the daughter of a public school teacher who lost everything in a workplace dispute without proof, and I learned early that in corporate America, documentation isn't just important, it's survival. Let me pause for a moment. Before I go any further, could you please take a few seconds to tell me in the comments where you are watching from? I want to know my story reached you, whether you're in Seattle or Singapore or somewhere in between. And also like and subscribe for more stories like this one, because trust me, corporate America is full of them. So there I was, sitting across from two people who thought they had all the power, who believed I would crumble and disappear. The termination papers waited for my signature, my surrender. Instead, I opened my email app and turned my phone toward them. 3 months ago, I noticed something odd. I explained, scrolling through a carefully organized folder. The numbers I was submitting weren't matching what appeared in the system later. At first, I thought it might be a glitch. Vance's expression shifted subtly. His left eye twitched. Being the detail-oriented person I am, I'd been blind copying my daily client reports to my personal email account for years. Just a habit I developed after watching my mother lose everything in a similar situation. Deirdre crossed her arms. Sending company data to personal accounts violates our Information Security Policy, Section 4.3. I finished for her, which has an exception for personal work logs maintained by employees for performance review purposes. I checked with legal when I started doing it. I pulled up a spreadsheet on my phone and placed it on the table. This is a record of every alteration made to my submitted reports over the past 8 months. The pattern is fascinating. My client acquisition statistics were systematically reduced by exactly 17%, while Connor Haverford's increased by similar amounts. Connor, my former colleague who'd been promoted over me 3 months ago despite having half my experience and client success rate. Connor, who played golf with Vance every Sunday. Connor, whose uncle sat on the board. I'm curious, I continued, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Is it coincidence that these alterations began exactly when Vance took over our department? Or that every woman in our division has similar discrepancies? The color drained from Vance's face. Deirdre's professional mask slipped for just a second. These are serious accusations, she said, her voice noticeably less confident. They are, I agreed, which is why I've documented everything meticulously. The timestamps of my original submissions, screenshots of the altered records, the pattern of changes, and most interestingly, the system login credentials used to make those changes. I pulled up another document. This is a time-stamped record showing that the alterations were made using your administrative credentials, Vance. Always between 7:15 and 7:40 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when you told the team you were staying late for system maintenance. The silence in the room was deafening. I continued. I also have emails from 5 female colleagues who experienced similar performance issues after you took over. None of our male counterparts had these problems. Vance's face contorted. You can't prove. I already have, I interrupted, pulling out a small USB drive. Everything is here, including a full timeline analysis. I sent copies to Marissa Chenot in the ethics office and Arthur Westman in legal 30 minutes ago. I leaned back in my chair. I didn't come here to be fired today. I came here to watch you try. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. Arthur from legal appeared, grim-faced and clutching a folder. Marissa from ethics brought her assistant who took notes frantically. The regional director joined by video call, his weekend interrupted by what was quickly becoming a major situation. I sat through it all, answering questions calmly, presenting evidence methodically. The weight of 6 years of hard work, of doubting myself when my numbers didn't match my results, of watching less qualified men advance while I stagnated. It all crystallized into this moment of perfect clarity. How did you first notice the discrepancies? Arthur asked, adjusting his glasses. I've kept a personal work journal since I started here, I explained. Every client, every interaction, every outcome. When my quarterly reviews showed numbers below my targets despite what I knew I'd achieved, I started investigating. And you believe this was deliberate manipulation to justify promoting Mr. Haverford instead of you? Marissa clarified. The evidence suggests it wasn't just me, I replied. Tanya in healthcare accounts, Zoe in retirement services, Imani in estate planning, and Rebecca in commercial lending all experienced similar performance issues under Vance's management. All were passed over for promotions that went to men with objectively inferior results. The regional director's voice came through the speaker. Ms. Moreno, on behalf of the company, I want to apologize for what appears to be a serious breach of our values. We'll be conducting a full investigation. I nodded, but knew corporate speak when I heard it. Investigations could be buried, findings minimized, problems swept away with NDAs and settlements. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But I should mention that I've also prepared a detailed analysis of the financial impact these manipulations had on my compensation over the past 3 quarters. The bonus structures tied to performance metrics I actually achieved but wasn't credited for total approximately $47,000 in lost wages. I paused, letting that sink in. Multiply that by 5 affected women, and you're looking at a pattern of gender-based compensation, discrimination, that would interest several regulatory agencies, and possibly the press. The tension in the room thickened. Vance looked like he might be sick. Deirdre was furiously texting someone under the table. Arthur cleared his throat. Perhaps we should continue this discussion with just Ms. Moreno and the executive team. As Vance and Deirdre were asked to leave, I caught Vance's eye. The man who had systematically undermined my work, who had built his success on diminishing mine, who had probably never imagined I'd fight back. He looked away first. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights and feeling strangely calm. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from colleagues who had heard rumors. I answered none of them. This moment was mine, and I wanted to savor the stillness before the storm that would follow. Monday morning arrived with a different energy. Security met me in the lobby, but instead of escorting me out, they took me to the executive floor, a place I'd visited exactly twice in 6 years. The CEO, Lorraine Templeton, was waiting in her office. Unlike most of the executive suite, her space was minimal and practical. No mahogany pretensions or walls of vanity awards. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Ms. Moreno, she said, studying me with sharp eyes. I've spent my weekend reviewing your evidence. It's compelling. I sat silently, waiting. I built this company to be different, she continued. To value performance over politics, to reward results regardless of gender or background. She sighed heavily. Clearly, I've failed to ensure those values reached every corner of our organization. With respect, I replied, values without enforcement are just wall decorations. A smile flickered across her face. Precisely why I wanted to meet with you directly. Vance has been terminated. Deirdre has been suspended pending further investigation. Connor Haverford's promotion is under review. She slid a folder across her desk. This is our proposal to make this right. It includes back pay for the bonuses you earned, a promotion to Director of Client Strategy, and a position on our newly formed Compensation Review Committee. I opened the folder and scanned the documents inside. The numbers were significant, far beyond what I'd expected. "Why not just offer me a settlement to go away quietly?" I asked. "It would be cheaper." Lorraine's expression hardened. "Because that's what Vance would do. Cover the problem instead of fixing it. I don't want you gone, Ms. Moreno. I want you empowered to help me find every instance of this behavior in our company and eliminate it." I considered her words carefully. "And the other women affected?" "Similar compensation adjustments are being prepared, and I want you to help me develop a transparent reporting system that prevents this from happening again." It wasn't the outcome I had expected when I walked into that conference room 3 days earlier. I had been prepared for termination, for legal battles, for the exhausting fight that would follow. I hadn't prepared for victory, at least not one this complete. But as I looked at the offer before me, I realized this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. "I have some ideas about that reporting system," I said, pulling out my notebook, "and about how we identify other potential cases throughout the company." Lorraine smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I was hoping you would." The next weeks were intense. I moved offices, assembled a team, and began the painstaking work of auditing performance records across the company. We found 7 more cases similar to mine, all women, all with adjusted performance metrics, all denied promotions or compensation they had earned. Connor Haverford resigned before his review was completed. Rumor had it he'd already accepted a position at a competitor. I wondered if he'd taken his manipulative practices with him, or if being exposed had taught him something. I found I didn't much care either way. The system we built was elegant in its simplicity. Performance metrics would now be recorded in a blockchain-style database that tracked every change, who made it, when, and why. Employees would receive automatic notifications of any adjustments to their records. Quarterly audits would scan for patterns of alteration targeting specific groups. One afternoon, as I was reviewing the implementation plan, Tanya from Healthcare Accounts stopped by my new office. "I never thought anyone would believe us," she said quietly. "I almost gave up and left last year when my numbers kept coming in low despite everything I was doing." "I know the feeling," I replied. "For months, I thought I was going crazy, questioning my own work, my own memory." "How did you find the courage to fight back?" she asked. I thought about my mother, who had lost a 20-year teaching career because she couldn't prove her principal had altered her student evaluation scores after she reported his inappropriate behavior toward female staff. "Documentation," I said simply, and the absolute certainty that I wouldn't let someone else take credit for my work or make me doubt myself. Tanya nodded. "Well, thank you. You've changed things for all of us." After she left, I sat looking at my computer screen, at the countless files of evidence I'd gathered, at the new system we were building. The revenge wasn't in destroying careers, though Vance certainly deserved his fate. The revenge was in creating something that would prevent this from happening to others. That's the thing about real justice. It's not just about punishing wrongdoers. It's about fixing the broken systems that enabled them. 6 months later, I stood at a podium at our company's annual leadership conference, presenting the new performance tracking system to managers from across the country. As I explained how it would ensure accountability and fairness, I spotted Lorraine in the back of the room, nodding approvingly. When I finished, she joined me on stage. "What Eliza has built isn't just a reporting system," she told the audience. "It's a blueprint for integrity. And it came from someone who had every reason to walk away from this company, but chose instead to make it better." The applause was thunderous, but the real victory was in the data that followed. Promotions of qualified women increased 34% in the first year. Pay equity gaps narrowed across every department. Employee retention improved dramatically. And me? I found that success truly is the best revenge. Not just professional success, but the deep satisfaction of knowing that my battle had created lasting change. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't kept those records, if I hadn't noticed the pattern, if I had just signed those termination papers and walked away that day. I never expected my story to become a case study in corporate ethics training. I never imagined standing in front of executives at industry conferences, explaining how systematic bias can hide in performance metrics. I certainly never thought I'd be featured in business magazines as some kind of corporate whistleblower hero. But life has a way of taking unexpected turns when you stand your ground. It's been 16 months since that day in the conference room, and I want to share what happened after, because the revenge wasn't just that single moment of exposure, it was everything that followed. About 2 months after implementing our new transparent reporting system, I received an email that made my heart stop. It was from someone named Danielle Mercer at a competing firm. The subject line, "Vance Holloway is interviewing here. I saw your presentation at the Financial Services Summit last month," she wrote. "Our company is considering Vance Holloway for a senior position. He has impressive references, but something felt off in his interview. I Googled him and found nothing concerning. But then a colleague mentioned rumors about his departure from your firm. I'm taking a risk contacting you, but I need to know, should I be worried?" I stared at my screen for a long time. Vance had been quietly terminated with a separation agreement that included non-disparagement clauses. The company had chosen not to pursue further action against him, focusing instead on fixing our internal systems. I was bound by the same confidentiality provisions as everyone else. What would justice look like in this moment? Revenge would be easy. I could forward all my evidence to Danielle and watch Vance's career opportunities crumble. It would feel good, knowing he couldn't just slide into another position where he might repeat his behavior. Instead, I called our legal department. "I need guidance," I told Arthur Westman. "I've been contacted by someone at a competing firm about Vance. What are my obligations here?" Arthur was silent for a moment. "Legally, the non-disparagement clause limits what you can say, but there's a moral question that goes beyond legal obligations," he said carefully. "If we know someone has a pattern of harmful behavior and we say nothing, are we complicit in future harm?" That conversation led to an emergency meeting with Lorraine and the executive team. After 3 hours of debate about legal exposure versus ethical responsibility, we drafted a carefully worded response that Lorraine would deliver personally by phone, not in writing. I never learned exactly what she said to Danielle's CEO, but I did receive another email from Danielle 2 weeks later. "Thank you. We've gone in another direction with that position. Your company's handling of this situation was both ethical and professional." That night, I sat on my balcony again, thinking about circles of accountability, about how systems protect people like Vance until someone disrupts them, about how revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about prevention. The next challenge came from an unexpected direction: my colleagues. While many supported me, others grew resentful of the changes. The new transparency system meant everyone's performance was visible. No more hiding mediocre results behind office politics or personal connections. No more taking credit for others' work. Noah from the trading desk cornered me in the break room one morning. "Your little justice crusade has turned this place into a surveillance state," he said, his voice low but intense. "Some of us were doing just fine before you decided to play corporate watchdog." I measured my response carefully. Transparency isn't surveillance, Noah. It's accountability. "Easy for you to say when you're the one who designed the system," he replied. "Word is you're just currying favor with Lorraine to fast-track your own career." I felt heat rise to my face but kept my expression neutral. The system treats everyone equally. If you're doing your job well, you have nothing to worry about. He leaned closer. "You've made enemies, Eliza. More than you know." As he walked away, I realized revenge has consequences beyond its intended target. By exposing Vance and changing our systems, I disrupted a power structure that benefited more people than just him. People who were now watching me closely, waiting for me to fail. And fail I did, spectacularly. 3 months later, we were pitching to secure the Jenkins account, a potential client worth millions in annual revenue. I'd worked nights and weekends preparing our presentation, analyzing their portfolio needs, customizing our service offerings. This was my first major pitch since my promotion, and everyone was watching. The morning of the presentation, I woke to find my carefully prepared slides had been altered overnight. Key data points were wrong. Financial projections were miscalculated. Client-specific references had been replaced with generic language. Someone had accessed my presentation after hours and sabotaged it. My first instinct was panic. The Jenkins team would be in our office in 2 hours. There wasn't time to reconstruct everything from scratch. Then I remembered. Our new system tracked everything, including document revisions. I called our IT security team, who confirmed my suspicions. My presentation had been accessed at 11:42 p.m. using Noah's credentials. Every change was logged in the system, every deletion, every alteration, every replacement. When Noah strolled into the office at 8:30, he found me waiting with Arthur from legal and Rita from IT security. "Interesting evening work you did last night," I said calmly. The color drained from his face as Rita outlined the evidence. Arthur explained the severity of the violation, not just company policy, but potentially laws regarding corporate sabotage and interference with business relationships. "You have 30 minutes to clean out your desk," Arthur told him. "Security will escort you out." As Noah stood to leave, his shock transformed into something uglier. "This isn't over, Eliza. People like you don't last in this industry. You think you've won, but you've just painted a target on your back." After he left, I had exactly 90 minutes to salvage my presentation. With help from my team, we restored the correct data from backups and rebuilt what we couldn't recover. The pitch went forward, not perfectly, but well enough that the Jenkins team signed with us the following week. That evening, Lorraine called me into her office. "You've stirred up a hornet's nest," she said without preamble. Noah wasn't acting alone. He has friends in executive positions at 3 competitor firms. They've been reaching out to our clients, spreading rumors about instability in our leadership. My stomach tightened. I never wanted to create problems for the company. "You didn't create the problems, Eliza. You exposed them." Lorraine tapped her pen against her desk. "But now we need to decide how to respond." What followed was the most challenging 6 months of my career. The revenge I'd sought against one man had evolved into something much larger, a fundamental restructuring of power dynamics that had been in place for decades. Several clients did leave, citing concerns about recent changes in management. 2 board members who had been close with Vance resigned in protest over what they called excessive transparency measures. Our stock price dipped temporarily as market analysts questioned our internal stability. I began to doubt myself. Had my pursuit of justice gone too far? Had my desire for revenge against Vance inadvertently damaged the livelihoods of hundreds of innocent employees? One evening, as I was working late, Imani from estate planning knocked on my door. She had been one of the women whose performance metrics had been altered under Vance's management. "I heard you're taking heat for the client losses," she said. I nodded, too tired to pretend everything was fine. "I wanted you to see this." She handed me a folder. Inside was a report showing that while we had lost 7 clients in the corporate exodus, her division had gained 12 new ones in the same period. And it's not just estate planning. Tanya's healthcare accounts are up 22%. Zoe's retirement services division landed the Riverside Pension Fund last week. I looked up, confused. Why the sudden growth? Imani smiled. "Word is spreading about our new approach. Clients, especially women clients with significant portfolios, are moving their business to us specifically because of our commitment to transparency and ethics. The Jenkins account? The deciding factor was your presentation about our new reporting systems." She sat across from me. "The old guard is fighting back because they're scared. They should be. You've changed the game, Eliza, and some of us are winning because of it." That conversation shifted something in me. I stopped seeing myself as someone who had disrupted the company and started recognizing that I was helping rebuild it. Stronger, fairer, more sustainable. The next quarter's results proved Imani right. While we had lost some traditional corporate clients, we had gained significant new business in areas where we had previously struggled to compete. Our client diversity improved dramatically. Employee retention among women and minority staff reached record highs. And then came the day I'd been both anticipating and dreading. 9 months after his termination, Vance Holloway filed a wrongful dismissal lawsuit against the company and against me personally. His legal claim alleged that I had manufactured evidence to orchestrate his dismissal, and engaged in a vindictive campaign to destroy his professional reputation. He was seeking $3.8 million in damages. When I read the lawsuit, something unexpected happened. Instead of fear or anger, I felt a strange sense of calm. This was Vance's last desperate attempt to rewrite history, to position himself as the victim rather than the perpetrator. Our legal team was confident. His case has no merit, Arthur assured me. Our documentation is impeccable. The system logs can't be altered retroactively. Multiple witnesses have corroborated your account. But lawsuits are draining, even when you're in the right. For the next 3 months, I sat through depositions where Vance's attorneys questioned my motives, my methods, my mental state. They painted me as an ambitious employee who had fabricated evidence to advance my career at Vance's expense. During a particularly grueling session, Vance himself was present. As his lawyer pressed me about why I had begun documenting my work so meticulously, I looked directly at Vance. I learned it from my mother, I said. She was a public school teacher for 20 years. When she reported her principal for inappropriate behavior toward female staff, he altered her performance evaluations to justify firing her. She had no proof of what he'd done, so she lost everything: her job, her pension, her professional reputation. I kept my eyes on Vance. She taught me that when systems are designed to protect the powerful, documentation becomes a form of resistance. I didn't start keeping records because I suspected Vance specifically. I kept records because I understood how vulnerable employees can be when those with authority abuse it. The deposition room fell silent. Even Vance's attorney seemed momentarily at a loss for words. 2 weeks later, Vance withdrew his lawsuit. The terms of the withdrawal were confidential, but he never worked in our industry again. The final chapter of this story came a year after that conference room confrontation. Lorraine invited me to join the board of directors as head of a new ethics and accountability committee. My role would be to ensure that the changes we'd implemented became permanent parts of the company's structure, embedded in its DNA, not dependent on any individual champion. At my first board meeting, I proposed something radical: publishing our internal accountability metrics externally, sharing with clients, investors, and regulators exactly how we measured performance, how we ensured fairness in promotion and compensation, how we addressed discrepancies when they appeared. Transparency shouldn't stop at our walls, I argued. If we truly believe in what we've built, we should be willing to let the world see it. The debate was intense. Some board members worried about competitive disadvantage, others about increased regulatory scrutiny. But in the end, the vote was 7-2 in favor of my proposal. 6 months later, our company became the first in the industry to publish a comprehensive accountability and ethics report alongside our financial statements. The response was overwhelming. Industry publications covered it extensively. Regulatory bodies cited it as a model. And most importantly, clients responded with increased trust and investment. 3 other major firms in our sector have since adopted similar transparency measures. It's becoming a competitive advantage, proof that doing the right thing can also be good business. Last week, I received an email from a woman named Jordan at a technology company across the country. I found your ethics report online while researching how to address similar issues in my workplace. She wrote, "Would you be willing to share how you gathered evidence and built your case? I believe the same thing is happening to me and 3 other women in my department." I spent an hour on the phone with her that evening, explaining how to document discrepancies, how to secure evidence, how to build an irrefutable case. As we talked, I realized that the ripples from my small act of resistance were spreading far beyond what I could have imagined. That's the thing about standing up to systemic problems. You never know how far the impact will reach. My revenge against Vance wasn't just about him, or even about me. It became about changing the environment that allowed people like him to thrive at the expense of others. So, if you're sitting there wondering if you should fight back against unfairness in your workplace, if you should stand up when you see someone being undermined or diminished, if you should risk your comfort to expose a broken system, my answer is yes. Document everything. Build your case meticulously. And when the moment comes, be ready to show your receipts. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's transforming the world that empowered them. If my story resonated with you, please hit the like button. Share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for themselves is worth it. Leave a comment about your own experiences. I read every single one, and your stories help me remember why this fight matters. And subscribe for more real conversations about navigating professional life with integrity and courage. Because these battles aren't fought alone, and your voice matters in this conversation too. Thank you for listening to my story. The revenge wasn't in the confrontation. It was in everything that came after. It was in building something better from the ashes of what was broken.